Hello there, and welcome once again. Today I've got two stories from about the same era 100 years ago. One is a trip to New Zealand that Francis Chichester took in 1919, and it's a good jaunt. But I'll begin with a story from Gurdjieff from 1922 in Paris, where Gurdjieff uses a slightly earlier and different language than that we expect from him. Gurdjieff says, "When a man is born, 3 separate machines are born with him, which continue to form till his death. These machines have nothing in common with one another. They are our body, our essence, and our personality. Their formation does not depend on us in any way. Their future development, the development of each one separately, depends on the data a man possesses and the data which surround him, such as environment, circumstances, geographical conditions, and so on. For the body, these data are heredity, geographical conditions, food, movement. They do not affect personality. In the course of a man's life, personality is formed exclusively through what a man hears and through reading. Essence is purely emotional. It consists of what is received from heredity before the formation of personality, and later only those sensations and feelings among which a man lives. What comes after merely depends on the transition. So the body begins to develop in each man subjectively. The development of all 3 starts from the first day of a man's life. All 3 develop independently of one another. Thus it may happen, for instance, that the body begins its life in favourable conditions, on healthy soil, and as a result is brave. But this does not necessarily mean that the man's essence is of similar character. In the same conditions, essence may be weak and cowardly. A man may have a brave body contrasting with a cowardly essence. Essence does not necessarily develop parallel with the development of the body. A man may be very strong and healthy, yet as timid as a rabbit. The centre of gravity of the body, its soul, is the moving centre. The centre of gravity of essence is the emotional centre. The centre of gravity of the personality is the thinking centre. The soul of the essence is the emotional centre. Just as a man may have a healthy body and a cowardly essence, so personality may be bold and essence timid. Take for instance a man of common sense. He has studied and knows that hallucinations can occur. He knows they cannot be real. So in his personality he does not fear them, but his essence is afraid. If essence sees a phenomenon of this kind, it cannot help being afraid. Development of one centre does not depend on the development of another, and one centre cannot transfer its results to another. It is impossible to say positively that a man is such or such. One of his centres may be brave, another cowardly. One good, another wicked. One may be sensitive, another very coarse. One gives readily, another is slow in giving or quite incapable of giving. So it is impossible to say good, brave, strong, or wicked. So the essence emerges from the emotional centre, the personality from the thinking centre, rather like the nucleus and the cell, which is a universal pattern. And Gurdjieff says once again that each centre takes a great deal of effort to be developed, and can be developed in a very subtle way. But this must, of course, require a great deal of work. To become an artist of the body, or of the mind, or of the feelings, an incredible amount of study is possible, but who undertakes it? Do people today care anything about such things? Or are their ideas of the present moment and universal acceptance, just the manifestation of a very fallen and low-minded people, who no longer even understand the question. In my opinion, every part of human life has become meaningless, and a real life would involve you mastering all of your faculties and taking a real interest in the joy of the body, the joy of your feelings, the joy of your mind, and to make it your own. It's not about one or two small things. It's not about how to use your mind or that you haven't got loving feelings. Somebody who is a master, who is an Octave-Man, has to be able to hit every single note in the octave, because that's what it means to be master. It means you can do it all. It means that your body is agile, lithe, strong, that your feelings are wide, that you have a wide range of emotional experiences, both giving and receiving, and that your mind is profound and wide, high and deep. Only such a man is Octave-Man. Only such a man can guarantee his journey. Everybody else is clinging to divinity, clinging to Bible bashing, like Maurice Nicole and his father before him, the lineage of people with big mouths. Yesterday I did some unusual work, changing some very deeply entrenched feelings, and I had an immediate response from one of my neighbours. And it does make me think that we live in an energetic world, but it is very hard to change. It's wrapped inside all those many eyes. It's in the core of your body. It's in your cells. It's not easy to change. It resists change. But maybe, ultimately, if you could change that, yes, the world would respond to you. Maybe. Gurdjieff called this earth a paltry place, and I tire of its silly games. For instance, I noticed the era of the slave trade across the Atlantic began about 10 years after Martin Luther invented Protestantism. Protestantism, the only thing that you need to know about it, is that those people stopped taking the Eucharist. It means that they stopped receiving that sacred wafer from the priest that connects you to God. That's the only important thing you need to know about Protestantism. And those people who went across to America, who were Christians who no longer felt God, started talking with very big mouths in order to fill the gap for their not feeling God anymore. It's like those Zoom meetings with 100 faces and everybody says something, because everybody's a teacher, aren't they? That image of the world is being obliterated now. It's crumbling. It's falling away. One small thing is I happened to see a picture of the Sagrada Familia, which is a modern church in Barcelona. And looking at the roof, it reminded me of pictures of diseases that I had seen. And the church itself looks like some swollen birthday cake. What was wrong with the architect Gaudi? Maybe he was seriously malfunctioning inside. I was in Chichester Cathedral a few months back, and this is the ceiling from that cathedral, which still follows the ancient lines and has a sincere and straightforward feeling about it. What is inside of people? Almost nothing. Almost nothing. And it infects you, and it damages you. And this is not the way it was in the past. In the past, people would read Marcus Aurelius, and they would take it seriously, and they would not read anybody else. The people of the world who exist are going precisely nowhere. Most likely they're all going to be washed away, according to law. Which brings me to the subject of karma. I was thinking this morning that people do not really experience karma because the incrustations of the many eyes prevents it. The good things and the bad things that happen to people are not according to law. they're not according to the law of karma. They are according to the law of a fallen people, a different law, a painful law. And from the point of view of nature, it seems that the remedy for this is simply to make people unconscious so they don't feel what is happening. And therefore, if you really are to undertake the spiritual path, or Gurdjieff's path, you require uncommon qualities. Sometimes, if I'm in a bad mood, karma will strike instantly. I'll drop something or break something. And so, what should I have done instead? Be positive and happy all the time like all the phony toothpaste adverts. Today a certain struggle is required. Maybe a desperate struggle is required. I'm going to read a little bit from Francis Chichester, his journey to New Zealand in 1919, in order to evoke an older sense of the world, I think. He says, "The Bremen, a German ship captured during the war, was lying in Plymouth Sound when I joined her. The steerage quarters were pretty rough, with bunks rigged up in every inch of space. The food was poor to start with, and the cooking made it worse. But I was 18 and off on my own to New Zealand. My father had given me £10 in sovereigns, and because of the deep distrust of my fellows, inculcated in me during my religious-dominated upbringing, I always kept this gold against my belly in a leather money belt. It was December, and we had the expected rough weather crossing the Bay of Biscay, and I went through the normal agonies of seasickness. But after this the romance of the voyage took charge, and I would stand in the bows at night with the quiet roar of the bow wave in my ears, and watch the stars weaving to and fro above the mast. The deck throbbed, and the rigging shook at the end of each roll, but it was quiet for an instant before the ship started each roll back. The steerage passengers were an odd collection. The English ones nearly all seemed to have quirks of behaviour, or queer ideas of some sort. The New Zealanders were more balanced and practical. I think the one I liked best was a New Zealand blacksmith going home. One night a boxing match was arranged, and my opponent was a tall, broad-shouldered man with an exceptionally long reach. It was difficult to get inside his long guard, but the fact that I was getting into rather a mess, with a lot of blood over me, was not a proper indication of the state of the fight. I'd not yet got his measure, and was most disappointed when the referee stopped the fight. I mention this boxing match because I think it had an important effect later on in the voyage. We reached Durban for Hogmanay, and the coal trimmers' shovels beat a terrific din over the still harbour at midnight. I swam in the surf, behind shark-proofed iron railings. There was a fresh breeze driving the spray off the kumas in sheets, and the sea was so salt it stung my nostrils. The hot burning sun was a novelty. We drove about in rickshaws, and everything seemed romantic and exciting. The chief trimmer on one watch had been my second in the boxing match, and when he was brought back to the ship handcuffed, I talked the native policeman into freeing him and letting me take him aboard. He had been drunk, of course, and next day he deserted, and therefore the watch was one man short. I volunteered to sign on, and was duly accredited a member of my first trade union, the Firemen's Union. My 6 mates of the watch were a tough lot. They were London Irish. I was told that the Liverpool Irish trimmers were the toughest in the world, but it was hard to believe that they were any tougher than the London Irish. Most of them had been torpedoed at least once, and one man described how the engineer had stood at the top of the gangway with a revolver threatening to shoot anyone who left his post after the torpedo had struck the ship in the side. The Bremen had hot stoke holes, particularly one double-holed with a row of furnaces both fore and aft. When shifting clinkers in this hold, I had furnace heat from both sides. I was soon exhausted, and working I felt at the end of my tether. But we were short-handed, and in stormy seas after leaving Durban we were on watch 10 hours a day, 4 hours on, 8 off, followed by 6 hours on and 6 off. After each watch, time was needed to wash our bodies grimed with coal black, and we had to eat. Although the food seemed plentiful after the severe English rationing, we were always ravenous. Looking back, I think that again this was probably due to lack of some vitamins in the diet. Nearly every day there were fights over the food, sometimes with knives drawn. I never had a fight, and I attribute this to the boxing match early in the voyage, which had been keenly watched by both trimmers and stokers. Besides the crew wanting a bigger share as possible of any food going, there was always the cockroaches and weevils. I tried various dodges to keep the cockroaches off the plate and mug in my locker. My best catch from one biscuit was 3 weevils and 2 maggots. I was not the only person exhausted. A big Swedish trimmer said that he could not go on watch. There had to be a full complement below, and one of our watch had to take his trick for him. A second time, one of our trimmers did his trick for him, but when he declared a third time that he was unfit to work, our watch was not having any more of it. They dragged him out of his bunk and beat him up with their fists. They seized him by his legs and dragged him along the alleyway to dump him down the ash chute into the hold. These chutes were shafts just big enough to haul up a sack of ashes from the stokehold for dumping over the side of the ship. The man looked a ghastly sight being dragged along with his head humping on the steel floor and his face covered in blood. I had a feeling of shame that I did not come to his rescue, but I know that if I intervened, they would tell me to do his trick for him myself, and I was at the end of my endurance. Perhaps my mates were better psychologists than I. The Swede suddenly jumped up to his feet, and thrusting his attackers aside, drove down to the hold. I was told later that he worked harder than anybody else on his watch. It's difficult to know what to make of the earth. It seems like a farm for the moon, where unconscious people rise and fall. It appears that most of the religions on the earth are religions that work only in a world of fallen people, because in a world that had not fallen, it would not look like this at all. Here's an interesting episode from Ouspensky. He says, "Our friends found we had begun to change for the worse. They found us less interesting than we had been before. They told us we were becoming colourless, as though we were fading. We were losing our former spontaneity, our former responsiveness to everything, that we were becoming machines. We were ceasing to think originally, we were ceasing to feel. We were merely repeating like parrots what we had heard from G." Gurdjieff laughed a great deal when we told him about this. "Wait, there is worse to come," he said. "Do you understand what this really means? It means that you have stopped lying. At any rate, you don't lie so well. That is, you can no longer lie in so interesting a way as before. He is an interesting man who lies well. But you are already ashamed of lying. You are able to acknowledge to yourselves sometimes that there is something you do not know or do not understand, and you cannot talk as if you knew all about everything. It means, of course, that you have become less interesting, less original, and less, as they say, responsive. So now you are really able to see what sort of people your friends are, and on their part they are sorry for you, and in their own way they are right. You have already begun to die." He emphasized this word. "It is a long way yet to complete death, but still a certain amount of silliness is going out with you. You can no longer deceive yourselves as sincerely as you did before. You have now got the taste of truth." The other day I caught myself looking straight through my body. A large presence. It feels completely natural by now, and certainly I've paid the price with so much work. So I suppose I will survive the death of the body. Whoever you are, it's hard to feel happy living in a lunatic asylum like this. Okay then. Well, I think that's enough for this week. Take care.
I know you have